I love you. When I see my sister with her kids and her family, since this day she asked me about if I want kids. I think that's what you're gonna say. Keep thinking about this.
Stop this. Stop. Just stop.
Darcey's eyes widened, her mouth half open, like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Georgi had just dropped something that hit harder than any argument they'd had before. He spoke about family, about kids, about expectations, and for a moment, the room felt frozen. You could see her mind racing, trying to put together words while her emotions were doing somersaults. This wasn't just another fight. This was the kind of revelation that changes the game entirely, the kind of bombshell that makes you question every decision you thought was settled. And the way Darcey reacted, shock, disbelief, and a hint of hurt all tangled together, it was impossible to look away. The tension between them has always been thick, but this moment, it was electric. Georgi's words were careful, almost tentative, but they carried the weight of a man wrestling with his own feelings and responsibilities. And Darcey's reaction showed everything. She wasn't just surprised, she felt blindsided, misunderstood, and maybe a little betrayed. How do you process a conversation like this when your heart and mind are already on edge? How much more can these relationships survive before someone finally snaps? You can feel the question hanging in the air, heavy and unspoken, because both of them know this isn't a simple yes or no kind of situation. And just when you think it might settle down, the ripple effects hit. Every look, every pause, every sigh between them suddenly feels like a clue to what's coming next. Darcey's hands trembled slightly, not from anger alone, but from the storm of emotions she was trying to tame. Georgi tried to clarify, tried to explain, but the words seemed to fall short, like they were too small for the gravity of the moment. And you can't help but notice how their past conflicts keep echoing in this one conversation. Every argument, every misunderstanding, every unspoken resentment, they all come rushing back, making it almost impossible to stay calm. Meanwhile, just a few scenes away, the throuple drama is simmering, threatening to boil over. Tensions are high, people are panicking, and the small disagreements of yesterday are becoming the loud clashes of today. You get the sense that nothing is simple here either, that every interaction carries the potential for chaos. Even the calmest gestures can be misread. Every glance and every comment can spiral into something bigger than anyone expected. It's the kind of pressure that reveals who holds their cool and who crumbles, and watching it unfold feels like holding your breath, knowing something is about to explode. Darcey's disbelief isn't just a personal reaction, it's a reflection of how tangled this relationship has become. Her past hopes, her expectations, her insecurities, they all collide with Georgi's feelings and fears. And Georgi, for his part, seems almost caught between wanting to be honest and fearing the consequences of that honesty. That tension makes every word heavier, every pause more loaded, every sigh almost unbearable to witness. It's the kind of emotional push and pull that keeps you glued to the screen, because you know one slip could change everything. You see it in the subtle details too, the way Darcey shifts in her seat, the way she bites her lip, the way her eyes dart away before meeting his gaze. These are small human moments, but they scream volumes about what's happening beneath the surface. And Georgi's attempts to navigate it are equally telling. You can tell he's trying, but the room feels thick with miscommunication. And the thing is, this isn't just about what was said, it's about how it lands, how it hits, and what it exposes in their patterns. And you're left wondering, if they can barely manage a conversation about family and future plans, how are they supposed to handle everything else waiting around the corner? The stakes are already sky high, and what happens next could change everything, not just for them, but for everyone caught in this drama. Last episode left us reeling. Darcey and Georgi were on edge from start to finish, caught in a whirlwind of misunderstandings and emotional misfires. Every conversation seemed to spin out of control, like two magnets repelling each other instead of pulling together. We saw Darcey's frustration boiling over, her words sharp even when she didn't mean them to be, and Georgi stumbling to explain himself, only to get cut off again and again. It was a mess of assumptions and projections, and by the end, nobody came out feeling heard. The tension didn't resolve, it only piled up, like a stack of bills you don't know how to pay. You could feel it simmering even in the smallest gestures, the sighs, the glances, the silences heavy with what wasn't said. And that's what makes this episode even more gripping. Because the fallout from all that hasn't gone anywhere. Darcey is still carrying her hurt, her doubts, and her expectations like armor, and Georgi is still trying to find a way through it, stumbling every time. The previous fights weren't just isolated moments, they were a preview of everything we're about to witness. You can see it in how careful he is with his words, how she braces herself before responding. Every pause feels loaded, every phrase like a test, and you can't help but wonder which small spark will ignite the next argument. This is what makes their dynamic so addictive to watch. Darcey interprets almost everything Georgi does through the lens of past hurts, and Georgi, in turn, gets defensive, trying to justify himself even when all he wants is a little understanding. It's a cycle of emotional projection and miscommunication that keeps escalating. You can almost feel the invisible tension in the room, like electricity before a storm. And even when they try to be calm, there's this undercurrent of anxiety, of fear that the next word, the next glance, could set off the next blow-up. Meanwhile, the rest of the cast isn't sitting quietly either. The throuple drama is slowly bubbling to the surface, like a pressure cooker about to pop. Misunderstandings from dinner conversations, whispers in the hallway, and clashing personalities are creating a storm of their own. Elizabeth is caught between defending herself and smoothing things over, while Loren and Alexei are visibly frustrated and ready to pack up and leave. Yara feels blindsided by accusations, unsure who's being honest and who's twisting words. The house is buzzing with tension, and you know it's only a matter of time before these smaller disagreements spiral into a major confrontation. It's fascinating to watch how the past directly bleeds into the present. Every old argument in Darcey and Georgie's relationship makes them hypersensitive now. Every unspoken slight in the throuple household gets amplified. Nothing exists in a vacuum, and that makes even the tiniest interaction unpredictable. You're left watching, wondering how they'll react to each other, who will overstep, who will retreat, and who will finally break. And the way the producers cut between these storylines makes it impossible to look away. You're always waiting for the collision, the moment when tension turns into something explosive. And here's where it gets wild. Darcey's still holding on to hope, still looking for signs that Georgi cares the way she hopes he does, while Georgi is walking a tightrope, trying to show affection without triggering another argument. At the same time, the throuple's simmering disagreements are reaching a tipping point, and you can sense someone is going to snap soon. Every interaction is a puzzle piece, but some pieces are missing, and that leaves everyone, including us, on edge. You can't help but ask yourself, who will make the first misstep and what will it cost them? The stage is set, tensions are high, and nothing is predictable. One wrong word could send everything spiraling into chaos. Darcey's face tightened the moment Georgi started to speak. You could see her bracing herself, like she was preparing for impact. Every word he chose seemed to land wrong in her ears, even when his intention was harmless. And honestly, that's part of what keeps this drama so gripping, watching two people who care about each other completely, yet constantly misfire. Georgi tried to explain how he felt about family, about the future, and even about small moments that mattered to him, but Darcey couldn't stop reading between the lines. She assumed the worst, projecting her insecurities onto every sentence. Her reactions were intense, yes, but relatable. Who hasn't misinterpreted a partner's words and let fear or past hurt take over? The difference is, Darcey doesn't hold back, and Georgi struggles to contain his frustration without exploding. And that struggle shows in his pauses, in the careful tone he takes, in the way he chooses his words like they're fragile objects he doesn't want to drop. It's almost like he's walking on a tightrope, and every interruption from Darcey makes him wobble. And here's the kicker. Just when you think they might find a rhythm, Darcey interrupts again, not maliciously, but from a place of worry and disbelief. She questions his commitment, his intentions, even the depth of his feelings, and it escalates before Georgi can finish a single thought. He's trying, really trying, but every attempt at honesty gets tangled up in Darcey's emotional whirlwind. It's a pattern we've seen before, and you can't help but feel both sympathy and frustration for both sides. Then Georgi said something that could change everything. His words were measured, heartfelt, and a little hesitant, but they held the weight of someone who's trying to bridge a gap. Darcey's initial reaction? Shock. Her eyes widened again, her hands moving like she wasn't sure what to do with them. The silence that followed was heavy, almost unbearable, because you knew both of them were waiting for the other to make the next move, and both were scared to misstep. That hesitation, that weight of unspoken thoughts, is what makes this so tense and impossible to turn away from. And yet, the audience can relate. We've all been in moments where communication fails, where one person overreacts, the other underreacts, and the entire situation spirals. Darcey's intensity shows her fear of being overlooked or not valued, and Georgi's caution shows he wants to be heard without causing more conflict. The result is a push and pull dynamic that keeps everyone on edge. Midway through, the tension builds even more. Darcey accuses, Georgi defends, and suddenly the conversation isn't about the original topic anymore, it's about layers of past fights and insecurities. And you can see it affecting them both. Her voice gets sharper, his words get quieter but heavier with frustration. You can feel the stress in the air, the way a simple question about family can turn into an emotional minefield. But the wild part? Darcey doesn't back down. Every time Georgi clarifies, she questions further, as if trying to find the cracks in his answers. And Georgi, trying not to retaliate, ends up saying things he normally wouldn't, revealing emotions he's kept hidden. And that's where the magic and chaos collide. The honesty makes it raw, but the reactions make it explosive. Every viewer can recognize the tension, the confusion, the love that's tangled with frustration. And just when you think the storm might settle, Georgi mentions a personal moment from the past, something small yet deeply meaningful to him, and Darcey's reaction hints at a revelation waiting to surface in the next scene. You can sense a breakthrough or a breakdown is about to happen. The emotional stakes are at their highest, and one misstep could either bring them closer or shatter the fragile balance. Entirely the throuple house is buzzing, and not in a good way. Andre, Elizabeth, Loren, Alexei, and Yara are all in the mix, and you can feel the tension the second they walk into a room together. Small missteps become magnified, whispers turn into accusations, and even the friendliest gesture can be twisted into something suspicious. Elizabeth is trying to smooth things over, but every time she opens her mouth, it seems to backfire. Loren and Alexei are on edge, packing up half their things, unsure whether staying is worth the stress. And Yara, she's caught in the middle, frustrated, bewildered, and not afraid to call people out. Watching them interact is like watching a storm approach. You can see it coming, and you know something's about to explode. It starts innocently enough. A casual comment over dinner becomes a debate about who said what, who really meant it, and whether anyone can trust anyone. Elizabeth insists she was misunderstood, but the others twist her words in their own minds. Loren tries to mediate, walking the fine line between peacemaker and participant, but her efforts are met with defensiveness. Every explanation seems to lead to another misunderstanding. And the thing is, it's also human. How often do we overanalyze words, assume the worst, and create drama where none was intended? You can't help but cringe and laugh at the same time. Then the accusations hit a new level. Yara calls out Elizabeth for hypocrisy, pointing out that she got upset over gossip but then twisted words herself. Elizabeth tries to apologize, but it's awkward and defensive, making everyone even more frustrated. You see Alexei sighing in disbelief, Loren looking exasperated, and Andre standing slightly to the side, trying not to get pulled into the chaos. The social dynamics are tense, and it's clear that even small gestures are being scrutinized. Wait until you see who storms off next. It's not who you expect, and it shakes the entire group. Humor creeps in despite the tension. Watching grown adults argue about minor slights and interpret each other's motives is exhausting and entertaining at the same time. Elizabeth's attempts to explain herself sometimes make things worse, and Loren's mediation is almost comedic in its futility. Yet underneath the humor, you can see genuine frustration, hurt feelings, and the fear that these conflicts might irreparably damage friendships. Would you stay if this was your friend group? Could you navigate the constant tension without losing your mind? These are the questions the episode subtly asks while you're laughing and cringing simultaneously. And the escalation doesn't stop. Every apology opens the door to another complaint, every explanation is met with doubt, and the smallest disagreement snowballs into a near blow-up. You notice patterns forming: who interrupts whom, who refuses to take responsibility, who overreacts, and who silently seethes. It's fascinating because it mirrors real-life group dynamics, magnified under the reality TV lens. You can almost predict the next argument, yet it still hits with full force. By now, you're on edge, waiting to see who will cross the line next. Around this point, tensions peak. Elizabeth's face is a mix of guilt and defensiveness. Loren looks like she wants to vanish, and Alexei is ready to leave the room entirely. Yara stands firm, eyes narrowed, holding her ground. Every gesture is loaded, every word is analyzed, and you can almost hear the silent countdown until someone finally loses patience. The house feels like a pressure cooker, and one comment could blow the lid off. Then comes a moment that shifts everything. Loren steps forward to clarify intentions, attempting another peace offering, and for a split second, it feels like it might work. But Elizabeth misinterprets the gesture. Alexei reacts defensively, and Yara's patience snaps. The room explodes into another round of accusations. You can feel the energy spike, almost like it's electrified, and you know this isn't over. Wait until you see the subtle exchanges in the next few minutes. They reveal alliances, frustrations, and grudges that have been simmering quietly until now. Even amidst all the chaos, there are moments that make you laugh and moments that make you shake your head. These five people, all grown adults, are navigating jealousy, miscommunication, and conflicting expectations while trying to maintain friendships and romantic partnerships. It's exhausting to watch, relatable in parts and shocking in others. And as the tension reaches its peak, you're left wondering who will step back, who will push forward, and who will finally leave the room. At this point, the social friction is at its highest, and one more misstep could trigger a chain reaction no one sees coming. Darcey's voice wavered as Georgi tried to explain himself, and immediately you could feel the room shrink around them. Every word felt loaded, every glance carried history, and the emotional weight was crushing. She was crying, not just out of frustration, but out of genuine hurt. The kind of hurt that comes from wanting someone to see you fully, to include you in their plans, and then feeling invisible. Georgi, for his part, tried to stay calm, but you could sense the frustration simmering beneath the surface. Every time he spoke, he seemed to choose his words carefully, almost rehearsing them in his head, and yet Darcey still found a way to misinterpret or cut him off. It's exhausting to watch, and part of you wonders, could they ever get on the same page? He took a deep breath and attempted to articulate how much he cared, how his feelings were real, but not in the way she expected. Darcey, hearing this, oscillated between relief and skepticism. Her tears came not just from emotional release but also from the anxiety of uncertainty. She asked questions that seemed to have no answers, questions like, "Do you even want a future with me?" And "Am I part of your life plans?" And Georgi answered, honestly, yet cautiously. He's trying to bridge a gap, but every bridge seems to wobble the moment she steps on it. And in that wobble, tension escalates. This is where it gets psychologically interesting. Darcey's intensity can be understood as a mix of fear of abandonment and hyper-awareness of emotional cues, whereas Georgie's measured approach is a defensive tactic to avoid conflict. Both are rooted in wanting closeness, but the same strategies clash violently. She presses, he defends, and the conversation spins in circles. And you can't help but feel for both of them. They are deeply invested, yet every interaction feels like walking through a minefield. Then comes the twist. Darcey, after a long pause, admits something she hadn't voiced before, a fear that she's asking too much or that she's misunderstood. For a moment, the walls come down, and Georgi looks almost stunned. He hadn't expected vulnerability, and yet it opens a door. His response is surprisingly tender. He acknowledges her feelings, but also candidly expresses his own limitations and doubts. That reversal flips the dynamic for a moment. Suddenly, they aren't just two people arguing, they're two people trying to navigate love while negotiating their insecurities. But just as you think there's a chance for clarity, Darcey's old habits creep back. She questions, interrupts, and pushes for affirmation in a way that makes Georgi tense again. The emotional stakes are high, and every sentence is charged. You can feel the frustration building, and the audience instinctively leans in, wondering if the next words will soothe or ignite the fire. Could they finally reach understanding, or will the cycle repeat? Midway through, the tension escalates further. Darcey's tears are streaming, Georgi's voice is low but firm, and the room feels electrified. He makes a heartfelt confession about his fears and his love, and for the first time, there's a moment of near silence, a pause where connection seems possible. At this point, you can feel the audience holding their breath, unsure whether this fragile balance will hold or collapse. Then comes a subtle reversal. Darcey admits that part of her frustration comes from past disappointments and miscommunications, not just the present moment. This confession softens the atmosphere but simultaneously complicates it, because Georgi must now process not only his own emotions but also the emotional baggage she brings. Their interaction becomes a delicate negotiation of trust and understanding. Every glance, every hesitated word, every sigh carries weight, and you can't look away. As the conversation progresses, Darcey begins to show signs of letting go of control, trying to listen more, to accept Georgi's perspective. Yet the tension never fully dissipates. Georgi, sensing progress, cautiously opens up further, revealing hopes and doubts he's kept private. And the unpredictability remains. One misinterpreted word, one emotional flare, and the delicate balance could tip. You notice the micro moments. A pause too long, a glance that flickers doubt, a hand gesture that conveys both reassurance and uncertainty. These tiny details amplify the stakes, making every second feel like a turning point. It's the kind of drama that grabs attention and refuses to let go, the emotional roller coaster that keeps viewers glued because at any moment, a shift could change everything. As the segment edges toward partial resolution, they achieve small breakthroughs, acknowledgement of feelings, recognition of patterns, and tentative steps toward better communication. But the ending is intentionally incomplete. The questions hang in the air. Can trust rebuild fully? Will past insecurities resurface? Can two people with deep care but clashing styles survive these emotional storms? Every word, glance, and sigh in this moment reminds the audience that love can be messy, raw, and unpredictable, and that true resolution often takes more than one conversation. After all the tension, the throuple house attempts a fragile truce. Loren approaches Yara with an apology, her voice calm but cautious, trying to clear the air after the earlier gossip. Yara's expression is unreadable at first, and you can feel the room holding its breath. Finally, she accepts the gesture with a brief nod, but it's clear this isn't the end. Everyone knows that apologies in this group are like shaking a soda can. Pressure builds quickly, and one wrong move can make it explode again. The dynamic is equal parts funny and frustrating, because even well-intentioned gestures are scrutinized, misinterpreted, or twisted. Elizabeth, meanwhile, seems torn between wanting peace and defending herself. She insists she didn't mean to upset anyone, yet her words sometimes backfire, creating even more awkwardness. Watching this is like observing a carefully choreographed dance where everyone steps on each other's toes but refuses to stop moving. You can't help but laugh at the absurdity while also feeling the genuine emotional weight. Who handled this better, Elizabeth or Loren? And would you have the patience to navigate this chaos without losing your temper? The group attempts small reconciliations, hugging awkwardly, offering tentative smiles, and exchanging hesitant words. These gestures, though imperfect, reveal that despite all the misunderstandings and gossip, there's a desire to maintain some form of connection. Yet, beneath the surface, tension simmers. Each member carries unspoken grievances, and even the smallest slip could reignite the drama. It's like watching someone balance on a tightrope while a gust of wind threatens to knock them off. And of course, social media has been watching closely. Fans are reacting in droves, calling out perceived hypocrisy, praising moments of honesty, and debating who is at fault. Some viewers side with Elizabeth, arguing she was misunderstood, while others support Yara or Loren, highlighting missteps that seemed obvious on camera. The comments section is a battlefield, reflecting the same chaos in the house. The fascinating part is how online reactions mirror real-life relationships. People interpret behavior differently depending on their perspective, and assumptions often overshadow facts. Even with attempted reconciliation, the absurdity continues. You see Elizabeth's attempts to explain herself derailed by subtle defensive remarks from Alexei, while Andre hovers nearby, unsure whether to intervene or stay out of it. It's a dance of avoidance and engagement, highlighting how complicated emotional dynamics can be when multiple personalities collide. You feel empathy for the participants, but you also can't help shaking your head at the repeated patterns of misunderstanding. Then comes a subtle cliffhanger. Just as you think the group might find some calm, one comment, one glance, or one minor disagreement threatens to open old wounds. You notice the microtension, Alexei's raised eyebrow, Yara's tight-lipped expression, Elizabeth's frustrated exhale. It's a reminder that in this throuple, peace is tentative, fragile, and fleeting. Will they hold it together, or will the next episode see another eruption? You're left wondering who will crack first and what the next confrontation will look like. At this point, the audience is primed for the final moments, fully aware that the surface calm is just a pause between storms. Even in this partial resolution, there's humor in the hypocrisy. They criticize each other for gossip, yet constantly read between the lines, twisting words in ways that escalate tension. Yet there are glimpses of genuine human connection. Loren's attempt to apologize, Yara's brief nod of acceptance, and Andre's quiet support. These moments show that even amidst chaos, relationships can carry care and concern, though it's buried beneath layers of misunderstanding and ego. As the scene wraps, you're left with lingering questions. Who will step up in the next episode? Who will falter? And how will these unresolved tensions ripple through the group? Fans are already speculating online, and the anticipation is palpable. The social media chatter mirrors the emotional roller coaster in the house, keeping everyone invested and guessing. By the end of this segment, the throuple is left in a precarious balance, partial apologies, tentative reconciliations, and a looming sense that the next confrontation is inevitable. The stakes are high, the personalities are volatile, and the drama is far from over. As the episode winds down, the weight of unresolved tension hangs heavy in both households. Darcey sits quietly, tears still glistening, replaying every word Georgie said and every moment she misread. She wants connection, inclusion, and reassurance, but the emotional gap between them feels wider than ever. Georgie, on the other hand, is equally burdened. He's trying to express love while navigating Darcey's intensity and the baggage of past miscommunications. You can feel the push and pull in every glance and sigh, a reminder that love alone isn't always enough to bridge misunderstandings. Could they find common ground, or will the cycle repeat in the next episode? Meanwhile, the throuple's fragile peace is hanging by a thread. Loren's apologies are genuine, but subtle expressions of frustration linger. Elizabeth tries to defend herself while inadvertently amplifying tension. Yara and Alexei appear composed, but micro-signals betray that all is not truly calm. It's almost funny to watch how much effort goes into maintaining civility while underlying irritation simmers. You can't help but think, how long can these delicate attempts at reconciliation last before the next spark ignites the house? Every gesture feels like a balancing act, and one wrong word could send the group spiraling. The combined heartbreak from both segments is palpable. Darcey's longing for emotional security, Georgie's careful negotiation of truth and care, the throuple's simultaneous desire for connection and avoidance, all of it leaves viewers emotionally invested. Every unresolved argument, every tentative apology, and every hint of misunderstanding is a thread in this tangled web. And as you watch, you feel the frustration, the confusion, and the sadness alongside them. How can anyone truly stay calm when human emotions are so raw and unpredictable? And just when you think the episode is settling, the tease hits. The camera lingers on subtle glances, quick sighs, and unspoken tensions, signaling that next time, one confession could change everything. Someone in both households may finally reach their breaking point. Will Darcey confront her fears directly? Will the throuple unravel again under the weight of gossip and miscommunication? The possibilities are endless, and that suspense keeps viewers hooked, scrolling through social media and debating outcomes hours after the episode ends. You're left with questions that demand answers. Who will step forward with honesty? Who will finally say enough is enough? How far will emotional wounds stretch before someone takes a decisive stand? The drama is unresolved, the stakes are high, and the tension is electric. Every moment has consequences that ripple into the next episode, making it impossible to look away. The final beat leaves a lingering emotional punch, the kind that keeps your mind replaying scenes, guessing intentions, and anticipating the next wave of heartbreak, apologies, and confessions. One thing is certain, nothing is simple in these relationships, and the next chapter promises to shake both Darcey and Georgie, as well as the throuple to their cores. The question now is, who will break first, and how explosive will it be?